Welcome to the week of February 23rd. I'm going to break this video down into a training week and also a racing week. Some of you will be debuting your spring racing season at Polar Bear 5K, 5 mile, and the Bear, doing both of those. So we'll talk about that and how your week will look different if you are racing. So we start the training week with the steady state run with appetizer and dessert. The appetizer and dessert are the same thing. 4 times 1 minute fast with 1 to 1.5 minute recovery jog. Those are not full hard as you can possibly go, but they're pretty fast. And that's why I say fast, and I don't give a percentage, I don't give a pace, just run hard. And the first set of those, we don't want to overcook those and struggle through the steady state run. On the second set of those, the dessert after the steady state run, you can go a little bit harder if you still have that in your legs. So we start with 4 times 1 on, 1 to 1.5 off. Make sure you get a good warm up. That's not part of your warm up, that is part of the workout. So you might do some 20/40s or 30/60s or 100-meter striders before you get into those, because we want those to be beneficial and not relatively slow because they're part of your warm up. The steady state run, 3 to 4 miles for most of you, and we want that at threshold 80 to 85%. I think in Training Peaks it's written as 85%, but wherever that threshold is for you, we want to stay aerobic. We don't need to be going threshold plus to where you're producing lactic acid. Try to stay aerobic, but the very top end of that, so you can come back for the dessert and run those fast as well. The benefits of this workout, we're getting stamina, economy, and speed. The stamina obviously coming from the steady state run, the economy coming from running so fast on those ones with relatively short rest, and then also the speed from running fast. So we're going to get a great benefit out of that. If you're racing, and we jump over to the other side of the board, we keep the appetizer and dessert the same. A couple of 8 times 1 minute fast is not going to wear you out several days later when it's time to race. But instead of the steady state run in the middle, we're doing a goal pace mile, and that is 5K or 5 mile. If you're racing the 5 mile but want to do a 5K mile anyway because it's a little faster, a little more challenging, that's fine, have at it. So it's, for most of you, it's going to be 2 miles of quality, because the 8 times 1 minute, it should be for many of you more than 1 mile. So maybe we'll call that 4 kilometers or 2.5 miles worth of quality in that workout. Good tune up, you're getting a little bit of work done, but it's not going to be in your legs on Thursday, let alone on Saturday. Moderate quality workout for those of you training is 3-2-1 fast threshold. So we've done some of this recently. We want to, at the end of that 3 minutes, you're going to go anaerobic if you went 3 minutes and 5 or 10 seconds. So you want to run just as fast as you can, but not get past your red line. We want that red line to be coming just after you finish. So the 2 should be faster than 3. The 1 should be faster than the 2. We're running fast, but we're staying aerobic. Recovery is, I have it written in Training Peaks as 1 to 2 minutes, and that's purposeful. By and large, we can use 2 minutes to get that recovery, especially on the moderate quality version of this workout. The reason that I have it to a minute is if we're trying to accumulate fast threshold running, and if you're really good with your heart rate monitor and your heart rate monitor is good and very responsive to your heart rate, or you just listen to your breathing, as soon as you get recovered, go. When I do that workout, I think about, okay, I feel recovered, I'm going to go again, because I don't want the heart rate to drop too much. Because of that 6 minutes of threshold running, I want as much of that 6 minutes close to threshold as possible while still running relatively fast. So you can kind of play with that a little bit. If you're running with a group or a training partner, you might decide ahead of time, we're going to go 1 minute or we're going to go 2 minutes. Again, 2 minutes is safe. And because of the work that we're getting between those two, I have no problem with that. If you want to accumulate a little bit more time at threshold, maybe you go a little bit sooner. For those racing, moderate quality workout gets dropped. Run easy, comfortable, Slow's not the goal. Stay comfortable. Don't push. Don't do anything that you're going to look back on Saturday and say, I overdid Thursday. That's just silly. There's no point in doing that because it's not hard enough to be beneficial, but it might be hard enough to be detrimental. So we don't want to make that trade. If you want to add some striders, that's fine. 8 would be the maximum. 4 to 6 is probably the sweet spot on 20, 40s, 30, 60s, or 100-meter striders, just to feel tuned up, get loose, all those kind of things. There's also a psychological component to doing that during race week, so you can decide if you want to do that or not. Back to our training week. Long run is endurance long run. Find your pace. How fast can you go and cover the distance and recover relatively quickly and be ready for the following week's high quality workout, probably 2 days later. And then keep working on your long run lab. How much carbohydrate can you take in? How much fluid do you need for the given temperature? Err on the side of too much of those. And if your stomach gets a little upset, as long as you haven't done anything crazy, if you give it 5 minutes, it'll probably feel better, but you're learning how much you can do of both of those. So just a long endurance long run. If you're racing, and there are other races other than Polar Bear, but in central Indiana, that's the race that most people will be running. So there's a 5K that starts at 8:30, and then you can come back and run both the 5 mile or just the 5 mile that starts at 9:15. For both races, the warm-up is very important. Mistakes are made early, and if you're not warmed up, those mistakes are more likely to happen. But also, you can't warm up during the race. For a 5K, if you use the first mile to warm up, your competition is too far down the road for you to catch up to. So make sure you're getting a good warm-up. For those of you who are not used to warming up well before relatively short races, such as the 5K, it might feel like you're doing too much, but you're not. Think about the hard workouts that you do on Tuesdays and Thursdays. If we would do, let's say this workout, if you'd come out and we jog for 5 minutes and then jump into minute on, minute off, that'd be asking for trouble, asking for injury, asking for a struggle, and the whole workout kind of goes sideways if we do it that way. So make sure that you're getting plenty of mileage, typically at least 15 minutes for some of you that you can do more than that. So 4 is probably the maximum you need. 3 is probably the sweet spot. 2 is kind of a minimum before a 5K, and that would include some striders or some faster running as well. You want to be breathing hard. You want to get some muscular tension because you want to bridge that gap between easy warm-up running and racing. It doesn't have to be that hard. You don't have to do 4 times a quarter as hard as you can go or anything like that. But make sure that you're doing some heavy breathing, you're sweating, and you're doing some work to transition into that first mile. I put some key tips down there and forgot I did that. So warm up was key tip number 1. The second is mile 1. And that's where the mistakes are made. I already mentioned that. But in the 5K especially, they're probably made in the first quarter or first half mile. And when you go through the mile, and let's say you want to run 6-minute pace, and you go through the first half in 2:50, okay, that's way too fast. That's 5:40 pace. That's not 6-minute pace. And your first quarter was probably faster than that. So by the time you get to the mile and you're at 6 minutes, you're already slowing down and recovering. So when in doubt, calm down, especially that first 30 seconds to 2 minutes. You're not going to give away the race in that. But if you know your competition, you probably want to have them in sight in front of you. And if they're taking off crazy, let them go. Now you have a target. You can chase them back. Even in the 5 mile. I know in college, one of my teammates, it was a high school and college teammate, he raced so much better once he figured out to relax the first mile. He typically ran 26:30 for 5 miles. And if he would go through the mile at 5:25 or 5:30, which is much slower than that, he had great races. Anytime that he was out at 5:10, he struggled. So it's that first mile, matters. 5 miles, you have just a little bit more time, so you can relax a little bit. You can be a little bit slower that first mile. That's not the goal. The goal is to get through as fast as you can go without building any deficit. So, and that's the point of both of these races, is you are going to go anaerobic. It is going to get hard. You just don't want to do it too early. So think about your breathing. Is your breathing relaxed enough going through the mile? And then after that, your perceived exertion is really trustworthy once you get through that first mile. Key point 3 is the transition. If you're doing both races, if you cross the 5K and you're huffing and puffing and you're going for all you're worth, and you cross that line and you bend over and find your lungs again and you stop and you don't do much, you go line up for the 5 mile and you take off, your body doesn't like that at all. That is a bad feeling. Your legs, your lungs, your head, everything is going, what are you doing to me? So cross the line, get recovered, do some light jogging. But before the start of the next race, you want to be jogging for 5 minutes for a mile, maybe another strider or two. Probably don't have to do too much, but stay warm, get your breathing back up, get your heart rate back up a little bit, and then still ease into that first mile. And if you do that, that 5 mile is going to be much better. And the colder it is, the more important that becomes. And key tip number 4, use people. If it's your teammates and it's windy, trade off and on, depending on how windy it is. And I'm recording this on Friday. This morning was really windy, and I was out there and was thinking about, I should probably remind people about this, because I thought, if this is race day, hopefully it's not marathon race day. I'd rather have it for Polar Bear than for Carmel or Boston. Unless it's a tailwind, and today I think it would have been a tailwind in Boston. You have to help each other out. And if you're close in ability, you don't want somebody holding back and somebody way over their head. So it has to be a good pairing. But if somebody takes the lead, and maybe it's only for 30 or 60 seconds, if it's that 16 to 23 mile an hour wind that we had this morning, sit back there, draft, get recovered. Okay, it's your turn. Go in front. You take the win for the next 30 or 60 seconds, maybe longer than that if it's not that bad. And just help each other out. If it's not a teammate, find somebody else. It can be mutually beneficial. Of course, if you need to use somebody and beat them at the end because you use them better than they use you, that's okay too. But make sure that you use other people. It can also be, I'm just hanging on. Right now, I feel like I'm kind of at my limit. I'm with this group. This is where my race is. I got to hang on here, because if I fall back, I'm by myself, and it's a whole lot harder to do that work by yourself. So if you can do that. Now, if that group's too fast, you got to let them go, because you don't want to blow up and you end up by yourself anyway. But look around you. Find the next target. Okay, that person. The favorite game I like to play is, I saw that they took that corner. I'm counting how many steps it takes me to get to that corner. Okay, there's 16 steps ahead of me. We get to the next corner or the next lamppost or the next street sign or whatever it is, and I count again. Okay, now I'm 12 steps away. I know I'm catching them. And that's very motivating to go get them. If you're falling back and there's nothing you can do about it, they're just better than you are, you can still play that game and try to hold on as long as you can and keep that tight. That way the people back behind you that are chasing you down are having a harder time, because you're still engaged mentally and you're still chasing somebody. So there's all kinds of ways that you can use each other and help each other along the way. So just a couple of tips for race day. If it's your first race since maybe Monumental, you'll be reminded of what race day is like. But I'm looking forward to having a lot of you out there. We'll talk about this. I'll mention this in the newsletter as well, but I'll have the tent set up and I'll put in the newsletter where. So I'm looking forward to seeing you on race day, before the race, and then maybe between races, and then certainly afterwards.